Hello and welcome back to another special edition of the It's Not Orange podcast as we reflect on yesterday's sacking of Steve Bruce along with his clang. Don't forget Clements, who obviously added so much to this season after a horrible 2-0 home defeat to AFC Wimbledon. I just want to give my forward thanks to the Wombles, who obviously put us out of our misery and ensured that Bruce was potted and the suffering stopped for a little while. Good evening, gents. Welcome all to the chat. We're going to talk about Bruce's time with Blackpool from appointment to where we currently stand now and look potentially ahead to who we'd like to see as manager and what they'd bring. But Kurt, I'll start with you as you're in my top right-hand side. How are you feeling? It's sad to feel a little bit happy that someone's lost their job. But it should have came to an end a few weeks ago, and alas, it did yesterday after the horrific game at Bloomfield Road.
Yeah, I mean, I've got no animosity towards him. I don't dislike Bruce. I'm not particularly delighted that we're in this situation. You know, second bottom. I don't care who's in charge. It's not good enough. You know, we had a massive pop at Critchley for making us finish 8th with a terrible run in the middle of that. And we're in a even worse position, 18 months on or whatever it is. So a little bit deflated, to be honest, because I kind of expect better things of my football club than where we're at the minute. So it's a bit of a shit show from absolutely everybody at the club, from chairman to owner to managers to staff to coaches to physios and also the players. They don't get away with it. So deflated is probably the word.
Martin, I'll come to you next, but let me transfer over to Hoggy. I think the longer this went on, mate, the more toxic it would have become against someone that is, well respected in football, and as Kurt's already said, someone we didn't want to dislike or don't dislike. But enough was enough come the end, wasn't it? And it was becoming. Every week it's becoming harder to watch our football club, as Kurt said, and it's not just with him; it's with the players as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a nice point for Kurt to end on there in terms of the players are not going to get away with this scot-free. Absolutely not. Admittedly, they might have done us a favour in the long run in terms of absolutely downing tools after that second goal went in on Saturday. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, in comparison to previous managers, I think Bruce got a fairly amicable, polite, please be on your way, Steve, from the crowd on Saturday. He acknowledged it himself that it was heard in a nice way. But when you've got Natalie, the ground safety officer, lining up stewards in better formation and being more organised than Steve Bruce can put his starting lineup out, it's time to end and start again, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And Martin, I said it in the chat yesterday, if I've ever seen a team not play for the manager and just send a signal to both the owner and him himself to say it's over after, I'm not going to say a reasonably positive performance on Tuesday, but the last 60, 70 minutes last 60 minutes of the Luton game, even though we scored, was let them have the ball and hope we don't concede two, and the last we did. And then obviously on Saturday, I've never seen anything like it. Even I was surprised by the sheer effort put in, and obviously I've never seen a group of players look so disinterested in trying to win a football match, which is an unreal reflection on them, to be fair, because it says a lot about our current crop of players not wanting to play for themselves, but to obviously it was 100% confirmation that Bruce lost the dressing room.
I agree with you. I think in 35 years of watching, let's say an awful lot of shit, I have never seen a collective where they've literally gone on strike for 90 minutes pretty much and said, right, we're having him out. And it's it's a very bold thing to do for a group of professional footballers, because I think they knew that they would be bailed out by the fact that everybody just wanted the manager out. So it can never happen again. And I was very uncomfortable seeing it. And they came up to the north at the end. I'm sure, Hoggy, you probably saw. I don't know if you'd gone by them, but and they were sort of gingerly clapping people, and I just stood there and I thought I just folded my arms and looked at them. I thought, I'm not. He might be an idiot, Bruce, or whatever, but I'm not clapping you guys either. Frankly, it's embarrassing and it's taking the piss, and it can only be allowed as a one-off, and they can never ever do that again. So, as much as I wanted Bruce to go, the players cannot be allowed to get away with it scot-free, and I've never seen anything like it in 35 years of watching Blackpool, that a team just went, nah, we're not putting this in, because they knew that he was only ever one game away from the sack. And it's a little bit sly and a bit cowardly of the players, I think.
Yeah, agreed. I had hung around to the end. I tried to manoeuvre my way from the drum to dugout to ask him to politely leave, like I did Mr. Critchley, but couldn't quite get all the way this time. But yeah, by the corner flag, as the players were coming off, and Evans was getting quite a lot of grief because he almost had a smirk on his face at the time and was seen to be taking the mick or not. And the messages, body language didn't come across very well. Morgan as well was getting a bit of grief. I think the only player who actually got a genuine round of applause for his efforts was Jordan Brown. He kind of hung back a little bit from the main group, if you will.
Yeah.
And he probably is only one of the few in the squad who can probably hold his hand up and say, I've done as much as I can every week under this gaffer, even though we've been once again hung out to dry on Saturday. And certainly starting with Dobby, and I will get on to whoever the manager might be in the future, but every single one of them needs to take a hard look at themselves.
Yeah.
Because they're paid bloody well in this league to consistently underperform as they have done for the last 10, 11 games. It's not acceptable.
Yeah, it's a fair point on Brown. He's signed as a marquee signing, really, wasn't he? For against, ironically, a promotion rivals. Both clubs struggling this season, but it was a big signing for us and someone who's going to be that midfield, engine. And it hasn't worked because he's been right back for 70% of his tenure here. So, fingers crossed that changes under the new gaffer. But yeah, you're absolutely right, and it is unacceptable from the players. But we are here to talk about Steve Bruce and give him probably the respect he deserves because it's been a horrible, probably 13 months. Kurt appointed in September 2024 after that Crew game, a pure head loss in the group when Steve Bruce memes and pictures were in there, and looking back now, it was quite a funny evening. But when it was actually confirmed, there was 2.5 million interactions on the post within 24 hours. We kind of had to take stead and reflect on such a figurehead in football being appointed Blackpool manager, because at the time we really didn't know what to think, did we? And at the start it was quite good, but just reflect on how you're feeling when we first appointed him in September 24.
Yeah, I mean, it was bonkers, wasn't it? Absolutely bonkers, and kind of made sense once we all calmed down from the ridiculousness of it. It kind of made sense because what we felt like we had a really complicated, intricate passing. You have to do this in at this moment in this particular formation under Critchley, and all the players felt really rigid. And then he's come along and he's kind of released them to just go, right, 4-4-2. Let's keep this very simple and keep it basic. But unfortunately, he's kept it too basic, and there's too much of the fundamentals that have come into this season that just aren't good enough. We'll probably go into it in a bit later, Tom, but the fitness of the players looks embarrassing. How many of them can't last 60 minutes? Professional athletes. I'd go out there now and put in the same distance as them for 45 minutes, and I'm not a professional athlete. So what have they been doing? So, I know we're talking about Bruce, but yeah,
I think Bloxham is aging like a dog. It's not 60 minutes, it's 60 seconds.
I didn't know you could play football and become less fit by playing football matches.
Yeah, it's beyond funny. Well, it's funny, but I can't believe we're saying this about a signing that we were so excited to see this season. But yeah, you may be right, Hoggy. We didn't really get your opinion on the pod, obviously, when he was first appointed, but I just remember calling Martin and he was pissing himself in his car because he didn't know what to say.
Literally,
I was kind of happy in some ways that we got such an interesting character at the football club. I thought he wouldn't take much crap, and I don't think he did at the start. And it was kind of a coup for Blackpool to have such a, well, like I said before, such an icon in certain respects in football to be our actual manager.
Yeah, I think probably the same as mine, to be fair. Just shock. It was out of the blue. No one really expected it or saw it coming. And it started okay. And again, like Kurt alluded to it before, we're not going to sit here and bash Steve Bruce into the ground. He probably has attracted players that other managers over the summer wouldn't have been able to attract. His downfall, sticking to 4-4-2. I didn't really disagree with that too much, if I'm honest. It was more the square pegs in round holes and the lack of in-game management that, again, ironically, he tried to in-game manage on Tuesday night against Luton, having got 4-4-2 in a good position and putting us 2-0 up, and then absolutely kamikaze in it. But yeah, at the time it started well, and the most horrendous circumstances kind of derailed that for us. And I think if we're all honest, it hasn't ever quite been the same since then. And we've been playing catch up, obviously, towards the back end of last season. We that faint hope was there that we could maybe, if we put two, 3 wins together, we kind of got close and then just faded away. And this season somehow has just simply not got going at all. So once again, we're now heading into October playing catch up, and it's not good enough. And Sadler's got a really big decision on his hands.
Yeah, agreed. Interesting name of Cheeseoid. I'm just glad he's left before it became really toxic. I hope his legacy is as the manager who made Simon Sadler open his wallet rather than the man who stored us for a season. Sorry, yeah. We'll come on to this window and what is actually done during the club now. Martin, history made, the first ever Blackpool manager to win his first 4 games. I don't know if that should be history in 2025 or 2024, sorry, but it was. It wins against, what was it, Exeter?
Huddersfield, Charlton.
Yeah, Exeter, Charlton away, wasn't it? That Albie Morgan strike. Huddersfield away with CJ scoring and Joseph scoring, and then Burton at home. But it was a fantastic start, and we all thought we were on our way with Brucey, and it was a genius stroke of appointment.
Yeah, and I think in fairness, and I'm really not doing Steve Bruce down with this, but I think Keogh had set the wheels in motion by letting him free, and we were playing some decent stuff anyway, and I think that momentum carried on. But I remember a couple of people on Radio Lancs kind of summarising it. I think it was his name escapes me. It'll come back to me. But he's always summarising on BBC Lancs, and he said it's been excellent against Huddersfield, but they can't sustain it because it was 90. It was like so much pressing because we had Joseph in the team, and it was like high octane kind of up and at them. But he said I worry that they're going to run out of gas in a few games and they won't be able to carry this on. And that seemed to be what happened. Obviously, what happened to Bruce happened, and we'll talk about that. But it was a really good start, but it's easy with hindsight. But it looks like it was never going to be sustainable because we never quite recaptured that energy apart from the odd game going forward, did we? But it looked fantastic. But it wasn't going to last, was it? I think.
Kurt, those wins at Exeter was one of those heroic moments with Hubby popping up in the last minute and just really finally getting that win at Bloomfield Road. And it was great for Bruce's first home game, but more so the Huddersfield and Charlton wins were memorable for his tenure at the club because we were gone from watching Critchley for the last 18 months. And yes, some great moments with him. Second time around, not too many, but we were used to watching quite boring, passive football, but there was some excitement in Bruce's team, and I know it didn't continue. We can easily reflect on that and say now, but at the time, we weren't used to seeing such attacking football, and it was nice to see the players play for a manager and us enjoy the football club again.
Yeah. I mean, the Charlton away one, especially because we were 2-0 up the year before and we threw it away and it was 2-2.
Yes, yeah.
And then this time we actually seem to have a bit of steeliness. You're not scoring against us style. So yeah, I find that a lot of football clubs, and hopefully we have to have a manager bounce now. Like there's no way we can go without.
I hope that's compulsory.
Like, everybody else gets it. We can't. Yeah, it has to be. Otherwise we are genuinely in a relegation scrap. How long does it go on for?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good start, and he kept the basics. I just think that we didn't have the personnel. That's what it felt like. When you looked at the bench, and it was like Josh Onomer and Ryan Finnegan, and I could go on with the types of players on the bench. You were going, do you know what? If we invested a bit in Steve Bruce, and I think this is probably what Simon Sadler was thinking about in the summer. If we invested a bit and we carried on like this, I reckon we could go somewhere with it. So yeah, but then obviously we had a bit of an issue with Joseph going, and I know we got Ennis in, but we didn't really replace with the other quality in the other areas that we needed.
Yeah, I think you've just raised a really good point, which we'll come on to about the January window. Hoggy, don't want to reflect on this too much, but obviously with Bruce taking a month out, I think it was a total of 4 games. We had the Wigan game, Peterborough away, wasn't it? Barnsley at home when we lost in the last minute. It was the worst possible situation for any human to deal with, and I don't really want to talk about it in too much depth, but him taking that month out combinated in. It was with some poor performances, and it probably rocked the squad, obviously, because they were worried about him. And Agnew, obviously, upon reflection, is a horrific first team manager. He might have been Bruce's best friend, but it didn't add obviously too much to the squad. So those 4 to 5 games really, if I take to the footballing matters into hand, they really didn't do us any favours after such a good start under Bruce.
No, absolutely not. But also the reality is it also puts football very, very much into perspective. And
Yeah,
like you
absolutely.
say, there's young lads in that squad as well who are young parents who were affected as well by it. And it was just a really, really horrible, awkward situation for everyone. I think the club and Bruce did as well as they could. Clearly, there'd have been quite a lot of difficult discussions going on in terms of was he ever going to come back? Was it long enough? How can you put a period of time or anything like that? You can't really. But yeah, there was some really poor performances in there. I think it was 8 or 9 games without a win, and even when Bruce came back, we struggled to get going again, which again on reflection is understandable. And then was it Bristol Rovers? We went away and finally got a victory. That when CJ somehow stuck one in the top bin with his right foot. Was that the?
That was Gunder Critchley, that one.
Was it? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I think Evans scored a penalty, and Pennington header.
Yeah,
I think from memory.
I thought it might have been an own goal with Ballard. I don't know.
But yeah, I don't know. Again, you talk. I don't like to talk about luck because you make it over your own season, but things like that again, you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy. Really wouldn't.
No, you absolutely wouldn't. And Martin, we also made history twice that season with 8 consecutive draws at home. I think 4 of them being 0-0, the Charlton 2-2, the Mansfield 3-3. Some of the gems in there. But I appreciate we've spoken upon reflection. It might have been best for Bruce to leave then, but we have to give that man and his soul every ounce of credit possible from coming back to the sport he loves and trying to regain focus on his life and give him something to fight for and live for, if that makes sense. And he came back to football when we beat Gillingham in the Cup. But the form at Bloomfield Road, there's probably warning signs there that the squad wasn't big enough, or as Kurt said, had enough quality in it, just due to the fact that we couldn't really change games where we either lost the lead or obviously we done enough to come back but didn't have enough to win the games. But 8 draws at home, turned 4 of them into wins. We made the playoffs, right? So it was fine margins that season, but the draws at home were one of the most frustrating periods of ever, right? After having Critchley to 8 draws and winning away, it was quite a frustrating season at Bloomfield Road.
Yeah, and he made it really clear as well that he had a tough gig, I think, because there was a lot of recruitment done in the summer for a totally different system, and it didn't fit us, and it didn't seem to work, and he just couldn't get that kind of magic formula. I mean, like Northampton at home, and after Christmas, like Rotherham at home, and it was 0-0. There was some absolute stinkers at Shrewsbury at home when obviously we scouted Tom Bloxham. But yeah, no, it was so frustrating. But you could sort of see, and he was keeping the narrative going that that the transfer window especially was like a bit of surgery, and it was more kind of getting rid of people in a way than bringing people in. And I never, I kind of believed that we could get the playoffs, but it was always going to be a bit of a long shot. But I did believe in what he was trying to do, even though it was frustrating. And the fans never ever lost patience with him at all last season. He absolutely had everyone kind of behind him, and despite the frustration, it is hard when you're season ticket holder. You go every week and you don't see them win for a couple of months or whatever it was. It is very frustrating, but he still had people with him, but we weren't. Our bench was so weak, as Kurt alluded to, Onomer and Finnegan and people like that. That there's a reason why they're not here, and it's because they weren't deemed to be good enough, were they? They weren't game changers or match winners, apart from Onomer at Shrewsbury, obviously. But apart from that, nothing really from him, was there? So yeah, it's just frustrating, really frustrating. But defensively, pretty solid, to be fair.
Oh, the irony. Maybe we do miss Pennington and O'Fire.
I don't know what's happened.
Some real positives around sort of Christmas time. Some good performances like Birmingham away. Kurt. I know Wrexham was a decent performance and we got absolutely screwed by penalty decision, etc. But we look at the January transfer window, and Martin's already said, I think we got rid of, and I think it was the first Blackpool manager to do such a thing. We got rid of the likes of Dom Thompson, Elliot Embleton, who was obviously a masterclass sign, and we all fought out the second time around. Joseph was the biggest killer, of course, not wanting to get rid of him, but obviously got a decent fee. Ashworth went back on loan. Rhodes went. Norburn went, maybe the wrong or right decision, who knows. And Sassy and Ballard also left the club as well. But he got rid of a lot of the squad that were never going to play, but also probably cluttered his thoughts in terms of his message he wanted to send. And if it weren't for Joseph leaving a little bit later on in the window and him deciding, like, it by his own admission and Sadler's admission, that he wanted to go big in the summer, maybe 2 or 3 more players would have added that quality we needed to make the playoffs. But also give him credit for clearing out, a horrific sort of squad that we had.
Yeah, yeah. It all seems kind of pointless now, though, doesn't it? When you look at when you talk about it, it just feels what a waste of time. We might as well have, whilst we had a slight bit of momentum last year, we might as well have invested the money in trying to bring in the players to push us over the line last season, because we've gambled on investing big in the summer, and we're currently 22nd or 23rd. I don't even know. Might be last. I don't know where we are, but we're in the
23rd, mate.
And what are we, 12, 14, 16 points off the playoffs in October? So, yeah, it's great getting rid of all that deadwood. Bear in mind, some of those are still here. Ashworth's still here. By deadwood, I actually like Ashworth. I think he's potentially could be okay. But in terms of what we thought was
potentially okay.
Potentially.
Yeah. High bar.
So, yeah,
I'm happy.
Sold our player, didn't really have it, And also another thing to mention, we did the same in August previously with this selling of players and not having a plan for it. I don't understand what our problem is with acting like a professional football club in Division 2, League 1, with having succession planning for footballers and managers. We never seem to be like, what happens if Carl Joseph has a bid on the last day? What would we take? What figure would we take? Who would we go after? What would we look to do? It just doesn't seem to be that intelligently thought about at the top. We're talking about a problem that's been here since probably the second or third game of the season, I'd say. So by August, we recognised that there was an absolute issue, and I know I'm going on a tangent here. But, again, we're getting to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week. Right, now we've got to start the manager process because we don't have a fucking clue who to go for now. When actually, they should have been having these conversations 3-4 weeks ago, and it's the same with transfers. Oh, God, Daniel Grimshaw's gone. What do we do now? Right, we'll play Richard O'Donnell for a bit. We need to get a bit of a spine above, there's a lack of spine above the playing side, and they need to get a grip of it because it's not just Bruce's fault. This just isn't I don't believe this is just Bruce's fault.
Hoggy, in hindsight, which I'm not saying Kurt's tangent is incorrect because I think it's completely correct, but at the time when Bruce had the meeting and he said he wanted to invest the money in January, we all kind of agreed, in the summer, we kind of agreed with him that because he wanted to sign a couple of players, he said, didn't he? He said, but they were just asking one too much, and two, we decided it'd be better to build something in the summer and go with what we've got. Did you have an issue with that personally at the time? Because in hindsight, it's easy to say we should have invested then, of course, because we're the position we're in now. But in the summer this year, we all thought we'd be in the top 2 by now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, with hindsight, it's easy to say, yes, we should have done. But we never have as a club, ever. And Bruce said himself, this is the hardest transfer window because the players who are performing don't really let go of other clubs, and the ones who are available have been sat on their arse for 4 or 5 months doing nothing. So, no, I didn't mind it at the time at all. And I think that ironically will probably be Bruce's biggest frustration now is he was backed in the summer, and the people that he's backed and brought in for whatever reason have clearly let him down in terms of performances. But again, he was the manager and he was making some questionable decisions in terms of personnel that he was putting out in various positions. So very much on the fence in respect of feeling too sorry for him in that sense. But going back to the succession planning that Kurt mentioned on his little tangent, Dobby was mentioned as part of succession planning moving forward when Bruce was first bought in.
Well, it was Gio and Dobbs, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, absolutely it was. So it's massive for Sadler now what he does and where he goes moving forward. I think we probably could do a separate pod in relation to recruitment, David Downs and Simon Sadler and what they actually want to do in terms of moving the club forward, like I say, professionally, because Kurt mentioned Grimshaw going, and we spoke about Joseph. You can throw Apter and Carey in there over the summer as well. It was almost like we had a bit of an arrogance that we're Blackpool, they're not going to go anywhere. Well, the reality is we're just a club currently floating, treading water in League One, and teams like Charlton, who, currently in their position, can come and cherry pick us, and it's not really acceptable from a fan's point of view, if I'm honest. And certainly to have the ignorance to not see that it's going to happen, it is very, very poor and naive.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Let's wrap up sort of Bruce's time, Martin. We had an inconsistent, obviously, finish to the end of the season, and there were some games at home which excited us, like Leyton Orient one where we had 45 shots and still managed to lose 2-1, etc. But alas, with the defeats to Rotherham Orient was the
key ones.
Just a few of those games where if we won them we probably would have nicked playoffs, but we just didn't have the quality to win the games. But it was an inconsistent end to the window. But as we've already alluded to, the summer window and the excitement that built around it, and we've already said that we want to spend the money in January, and by God, I think we're all in agreement that we probably had our best window ever in terms of what we thought we were signing, in terms of the quality, the likes of Honeyman, obviously Ennis on a permanent, taking Stockport's captain Horsfall, Ravazoli, ironically, that we thought might be a decent keeper for Blackpool. But a lot of players in there. I think I've already mentioned Honeyman, that we just thought, that they're going to be exactly who Bruce needs to create a winning formula, but it just hasn't come to fruition. And the attitudes on some of them have been pretty disgusting, as already alluded to. But to add to that, the tactics and just everything around the football club in each game has not been one of leadership. It's been one of utter chaos, really, I suppose.
I think this is where Steve Bruce's kind of goodwill ends. And I think you have to look at, and Kurt said this so many times, and the phrase that Kurt's used in the podcast chat is like woeful mismanagement of a squad. And to me, that's exactly what Bruce did here. I totally take on board that the recruitment has been shit up until this summer, but they definitely redeemed themselves by, even things like, all right, they couldn't get Tyra out of Everton, so they thought, right, we can't wait anymore. The old Blackpool would have waited a la Cameron Brannigan for like 6 years until he agreed to sign or got his duck pond sorted out or whatever. But we just went, no, do you know what? We can't wait anymore. Let's get 2 goalkeepers in, whatever. And I thought the recruitment was good. I don't think many people moaned about it. It was everything that Bruce wanted was pretty much at his disposal. We know we had a bit of a nightmare with Malcolm, which we won't go there too much. But, overall, he got what he wanted, and it looked like a fabulous squad on paper. And I just genuinely think that he mismanaged it. He's got £1 million striker there who doesn't. I accept that he doesn't look like £1 million striker, but I do believe he's had his confidence eroded by the way that team's set up. So many players, they might look like they've let him down, and maybe 1 or 2 have, but I genuinely think he's let them down with the way that we're playing. And I think any manager would look at that squad and say, "Blimey, I genuinely can't believe that they are 23rd in the league." And that's where the frustration comes with Bruce, is that he's asked for funds, he's had funds, he's been backed like no other manager at this level has ever been backed at Bloomfield Road, and he's made an absolute dog's dinner of it, and it's embarrassing. It's always worse when you spend money. You look like a laughingstock in this league if you spend a fortune and you're shit. Right, most teams don't have any money and are shit, and that's fine. But we have spent an absolute wad of cash. Probably 4th biggest spend, I reckon 5th biggest spend in this league. Definitely shouldn't be 23rd. This squad can't finish 23rd, and that's where Bruce, unfortunately, his legacy is the better players he got, the worse he made us, and I don't know how that's even possible.
I think that's a really fair shout. I think, ironically, the likes of Stevenage, Kevin Nolan, Northampton, and we've said it before, Hoggy, haven't we? When you know how to do the basics right and you fight for the manager, you could have a bang average squad. With all due respect, I know we had a pretty special squad in the Championship, but there was teams around us obviously spending ridiculous amounts of money, and because we knew how to play under Ollie, everyone knew their instruction, and we loved him to bits. We all just had that cohesion and love for each other, and no one could stop us. And when you've got a team like Ravel's got at Stevenage at the moment, sit top of the league, of course. We saw that on the first day of the season. They were organised. I know we let them play a little bit, but when you've got the basics in League One or any league really, it doesn't really matter how much money you have spent. And I think Martin's right. I think I was maybe naive, maybe arrogant, but I thought with the players we've got, it was a given that we'd be challenging for the top two pretty consistently all season. Never in a million years would I have bet us to be in the relegation zone after 2 or 3 games. I know you could lose your first and be in there, but consistently across the board of the season.
I think there's a problem with that though now that, like Martin said, a lot of teams will be looking at us going, these are really not as bad as what their league table position suggests. So teams will naturally up their game against us. Whereas, most teams, you play a team in the bottom 4, you go, yeah, they probably are pretty shit and deserve to be there. But we do deserve to be there. Let me make that abundantly clear. However, absolutely we do. However, Stockport on Saturday, for example, our lads have got to double down twice as hard to work as hard now, because teams aren't going to be taking it lightly against us, even though where we are in the league. We're going to have to, teams like Northampton, Wimbledon did it on Saturday. It was a prime example. 15 minutes or so, they stood off us and thought, maybe these have got a bit about them. And after 15 minutes, they suddenly realised, actually, these haven't got a clue if they're coming or going at the minute. And they strolled through the rest of the game at a canter. We've got to work twice as hard now. And Dobby's got to absolutely galvanise this squad to start putting a run of results together to get up with this table. Because finishing outside the top 6, even now, is still a horrendously poor season. And what happens moving forward is down to the players on the pitch, because we can still turn this season around. We have just given ourselves an absolutely ridiculous mountain to climb.
Yeah.
Well said. Virtual round of applause. Kurt, this season, we've already talked about it. Obviously, the window, in addition to the results and the performances, we all know why we're here. 11 games in, and Bruce and the players have put us in this position. But if Dobby is in charge Saturday and maybe beyond, depending on how well planned we are, we'll come on to the manager in a second. But let's just, in theory, say that Dobby's in charge Saturday. Has he got probably one of the hardest challenges in his whole career? I know he took over after McCarthy and we played some pretty decent football. Or do you think he'll be relishing it, saying, I can get you playing football, I can release the shackles, go back to the basics, and we can have a bit of fun with this squad?
Stockport away, I think most of us would say it's probably one of the hardest games of the season up there, as difficult wise. I think we've historically struggled against Stockport in every game. Especially
Luke Beckett
last season. Yeah, exactly. So it's an absolute freebie for him, because if he still is in charge on Saturday and there's no new manager on the horizon and we go and beat Stockport, happy days for him. Actually suddenly comes into the conversation. I personally won't like it. I don't think it's the right route. But if he gets him playing football and then suddenly he's given another game and we win that, suddenly, maybe they do go down a different route. Because before we watched Keogh turn us around to actually look like a footballing team that wants to go forward rather than passing it sideways and backwards for 90 minutes. It's a free hit. I don't think there's any pressure at all. Pressure, to be honest, is on the players. Like, I've not watched a performance this season where I thought, tell you what, they've put 100% effort in.
No.
Collectively as a group, you might turn around and say players like Imre and Jordan Brown and Casey, and that's about it. Actually, I can't think of anybody else. I'd probably Ennis. But I tell you what, there's a lot of them that I could turn around and say, I tell you what, bet they've walked off the pitch and thought I could still run for another 20-30 minutes afterwards. They've never looked exhausted at the end of the game, smiling. What was the game the other day on the Tuesday night against Luton Town? Like, all smiling, happy, fuming, 2-0 up, down to 2-2. Be absolutely fuming at any level. If I go play 5-a-side, I'm absolutely livid. Why are you not engaged in the football club to be pissed off about results? They don't look at it.
I genuinely think, and maybe it comes with the caveat of signing the high play players, but I generally think most home games this season or away games, Exeter, I think they were laughing and like shaking hands at the end of the game as well after a horrific performance, 4-1, whatever it was. There's not been a time where, even Honeyman's grabbed him around the neck and said, what the fuck are you playing at? We desperately need to get together as a group of players here and do these fans proud that has travelled to Exeter and Plymouth in the first 6 weeks of the season and watched us put in horrific performances. And then come Saturday, they're clapping and, like Hoggy said, smirking away, and it isn't good enough. And the fans will soon turn on the players as much as they did the manager if the performance could continue. And they're all on 4-year contracts, so
they'll turn, Tom, and just won't turn up. You telling me that I can be bothered to travel to 4 hours to watch Blackpool play at the minute?
Hoggy didn't want to go Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. People are in Blackpool and they don't want to go. Why should they? Why should they go and waste 2 hours of their time when they're not putting any effort in? So, look, Dobby's got I'm not saying he's got an easy gig, but he's got a gig without pressure now because he's not expected to do well because we've been crap anyway. And he can do a bit of a, do you know what? Who do I have that's fit? And how can I get at Stockport? Because we haven't got at a single team this season. We haven't watched it. Huddersfield were crap. We should have lost. Barnsley were pretty bang average. We should have lost.
Do you remember Plymouth? Plymouth don't win all season and whoever it was.
Scored a goal or something. They were useless.
Yeah.
That should have been the end. That should have been the end for Bruce. After another identical 90 minutes against the Tuesday night before from Mansfield to do the exact same against Plymouth, that should have been that.
Yeah.
But anyway, here we are 5 games later.
Right, let's talk about the next man at the helm then. Obviously, we know Dobby's going to be in charge. I have a sneaky feeling, and this is my personal belief, and I generally don't know anything, that Dobby won't be the man that Sadler will want to get us out of this position. As much as I think he's got a hell of a lot to give, I think, when do you not give the man a chance if you think he's your succession plan? And Kurt, I'd probably, a lot of people probably will disagree with me, but I just think, what's the point in having that succession plan there if you're never going to use it? Hoggy, I don't know your thoughts. I'll get them early doors, but if we've got a manager that took over after McCarthy, that took over to help Keogh out, and played some great football against Blackburn, and Cambridge was a chaotic game, but it was fun to watch at points, not being 4-1 up and losing it. But you've got a manager that needs to cut his teeth, and if he doesn't do it with Blackpool, we might lose an incredible coach. And we've seen Wellens do it. We've seen Carrick do it. We've seen I forgot his name. Who's at bloody
Wayne Rooney?
Rob Edwards.
Yeah, Rooney. We've seen Everett to a degree. Obviously, we're going to Barrow, etc., and really turning up there. I was trying to think who managed bloody Middlesbrough.
Rob Edwards.
I can't think of. Oh, did you say Rob Edwards?
Yeah.
I thought you said something else.
3 times.
Rob Edwards is sorry. It's just sorry guys. Obviously make incredible managers, and to be fair, now doing it in the Championship. And I just think, do we take that risk, or would Sadler be criticised for that if we appoint, I don't know, let's say Danny Rahal, and it's awful? Who gets the blame then? Is it the manager? Is it Sadler? Do you know what I mean? Hoggy, where do we go? Because I personally want to see what Dobby can potentially do, and I don't think a League One, if you've got the tenacity to be a football manager and know the organisation of a football club, and you're not scared, Kevin Nolan, etc., shown they can do it, I generally don't see why he couldn't be successful.
I fully agree. I'm with you. I'd be giving Dobby the job. I'd certainly be giving him a run of games. I don't think this is a decision that Simon Sadler can afford to rush into. So we're 11 points off the playoffs at the minute, and it's a very hard game on Saturday. But my God, do we owe Stockport a beating at their place just for last season alone? But after that, there's nothing, especially look at the whole League One, there's nothing that really terrifies you. But Wickham at home, Peterborough away, who are probably bottom, Cardiff at home, they're doing well, but bring any team to Bloomfield Road, if we don't fancy ourselves, we've got a problem. And then Burton away, and you're at the next international window. If you can if you can half it towards 5 or 6 points close to the playoffs, under Dobby, and you think we're going to have players like Honeyman, Ennis, Banks starting to come back in and around contention, hopefully, maybe a few weeks down the line, then all of a sudden you don't need to galvanise the squad in January under a brand new manager who'll want to bring his own players in, most likely, because you've got them all there, but you've got a bit of momentum under Dobby, and we've seen that he can do it at a higher level. I know it was only a short period of time, but if it had come in, was it the Preston game, I think, under McCarthy, when he should have gone before that game, of course. We hung on a little bit longer once again. Another poor decision. It was just too late for him. Was it Norwich last game of the season? We went away and wiped the floor with them. Yeah.
Yeah,
The thing for me is Dobby's been here a long time.
because he actually started Morgan Rogers, instead of playing
Never-
him on the
never
bench.
Played
made it.
Lancashire as well,
Never
didn't he? He played.
Yeah.
He played a young kid as well.
Dobby's been around a long time and seen a lot at this football club, both good and bad. So that alone
And-
is the
and
most
been a part of
intelligent.
Holloway's promotion squad and been a massive part of it.
Massively include that. He knows what the fans want, what the fans like, what the fans will get behind and support. Someone coming from the outside doesn't have that, and he knows what they don't like and they won't accept as well. You won't find a person at the football club who's got a bad word to say about him. He's respected by everyone I've spoken to at the club, and whenever he's been called upon and he's worked with the under-21s, he's done really, really well. So from his point of view, what more can he do? Apart from saying, give me the job. So Saturday, like Kurt says, free hit, give it Dobby, and Simon can then hopefully can make it more difficult for Simon, because if Simon is looking elsewhere currently and Dobby's winning games, only Blackpool Football Club would Stephen Dobby winning a run of games be seen as causing
Adams.
be seen as causing a problem. But no, for me, I'd have no issues whatsoever if Dobby came in and got the job on a full-time gig. No issues whatsoever.
Question to you, Hoggy Davey, there. Would you put someone like Tomo in there with him?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Steve Thompson would only benefit Blackpool Football Club in any capacity that he came back in. Again, someone who understands what the club is about. Again, I'm not going down the whole 2010-11 squad, but if we're talking other people, we all know there's a WhatsApp group between that squad that goes around, so you can throw in Everett, Craney, Taylor Fletcher, all people who are doing bits of coaching, etc.
There's probably 11 applications going in straight now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not joking. Like the likes of Southern have said it before. You need to get a real leader in there, that one that knows what Blackpool's all about. And he said that before on X, didn't he, or Twitter, as it was formerly known. And he made his feelings very clear. And so did Fletch. saying he never got considered for it because of his experience or whatever. But they were gagging to do it and make our club successful again.
Yeah, you add Erds into that as well. Erd's done a lot of good work behind the scenes at the club too, so he's someone that Dobbs can lean on. Look, I think first and foremost, we'll see a dramatic upturn in improvements. Like Kerr said, individual improvements. There won't be players coming off that pitch who are not sweating moving forward under Dobby on Saturday certainly, and the next few weeks, because he simply won't stand for it, which can only bring about hopefully a positive upturn in results overall.
Let's look at. It's always fun to do 24 hours after you've sacked a manager, Kurt. The list of managers that would get thrown into there. I'm just proud to see that Neil Critchley's name isn't in that list. Kurt, 1 to 2 already on Ian Evatt. I have a feeling that and maybe he is right, but Alan Nixon said there was a standby list and Evatt was top of it. I don't know if Sadler's relationship with him, apparently it's not liked. He is 1 to 2, which would indicate potentially that people know something or more money's just gone on him because it's the obvious choice. I don't know, but Ian Evatt sits top of that list alongside Stephen Dobby and another manager that might have managed us before in third place, currently at 8 to 1. I don't know if he was any good or not, but Ian Holloway. How do you feel about Evatt, Kurt? We'll just start with the top of that list because it seems an obvious choice because he's out of work and he's played for Blackpool.
Well, Ryan in the chat has been saying for like 6 weeks that it definitely won't be Ian Evatt. So I don't see the point in talking about him. So Ryan's always right, isn't he? No, I kind of can see it. I think, when we just talked about people with that Blackpool connection, actually getting back to players that actually want to play for us, and put a shift in for the badge. Because there's a lot of history at this football club, a lot of proud history. And I think it's being wasted by players and managers over the last years that haven't appreciated it. And actually, I don't want to be sat in League One. I don't want, I'm ambitious as a fan, and I'm not getting that replicated by the football club at all levels, to be honest with you. I will park Simon Sadler for now in terms of the money he's put in this summer. The one summer that for years and years where we've seen an owner actually go, do you know what, I'm going to put in a top 4, top 3 budget. second bottom. I kind of feel a little bit sorry for him at this
absolutely.
stage of having to get the supercomputer of data out to find out which manager it should be next.
Oh,
The
don't.
problem is it'll land on Critchley again. Yeah, exactly. But when I look at that list, there's only really 2 or 3 names. I mean, take off Holloway for a start. He is not coming. Sean Dyche is definitely not coming. I don't even know why he's on that list. It's just bookie rubbish. You're probably looking.
If I start posting Sean Dyche memes in the chat, okay.
It just won't be Sean Dyche. Like, that's ridiculous. I think someone there, Richard Wellens, would he want it after being interviewed and being told no a few times? Probably not. But I think he's interested in a move up north. I don't think he wants to be sat in London his entire career. So that's an option. Luke Williams, I don't mind it too much. Plays decent brand of football. But I think couple of names on there. I wouldn't look too far away from people like Kevin Nolan. I know he's only just started, but he's doing a relatively good job with a pretty poor Northampton squad that's not being invested.
I just think the likes of Kevin Nolan, John Brady's on that list at Northampton, ironically, both at the same club. When you just get a club and you get the players that you're working with, I just don't think it scales up. I might be wrong, but I think it's just we've got what we've got, so I'm going to make it really tough to beat us. They were poor against us, and
yeah, but
we wouldn't like it. We wouldn't like
Tom.
it.
Like, we're looking at needing someone to come in to put the bare minimum of football.
I get that. I agree with you. I understand that.
And being a bit ruthless. I think someone's mentioned David Artell at Grimsby as well. I think that's a relatively good shout. Plays a decent attacking brand of football, and he's a bit of an arse as well. Gets touchline bans all the time. Maybe we need someone that's a bit of an arsehole. And he's very ruthless with the players. He said to players in the off season, sign the contract within the next week, or we're just going to withdraw it and we'll look elsewhere. So maybe we look at someone that's slightly a bit quirky and a little bit different to the older statesman of football, but it'll be Tony Mowbray or something, won't it?
Pardew's back, mate.
Neil Warnock.
Martin. God. Martin, I miss Blackpool Football Club at Bloomfield Road. I miss them away. When we're scoring 2 or 3 goals. The last manager to really do that was obviously in Holloway with Critchley when he got us promoted during the COVID season, etc. And the Championship was brilliant. But I just miss Blackpool. I miss the reason I supported this club all the way, 300 miles away, is because the fans got me into it. And then, we had some fantastic football under Luke McMahon and a few other, we just grew up. I grew up watching great football. And then we had the Holloway era, and it all went to shit obviously after that, don't get me wrong, but I think it's hard to say, do we want someone like Ian Evatt when he's got links with the clubs? What's his win ratio, like 48% in his career with Barrow and Bolton, playoffs, passion, arrogance, fighting players, headbutting Shrewsbury players. I don't know if I want that at my club, and I don't know if Evatt was calmed down after this time out and reflected, and he's going to bring his own sort of identity to the football club. But he's got massive ties with the club, and if it goes wrong, it turns toxic a lot more quickly. There's lots of mentions in the chat for Skubala, Carrick, Damien Duff, who got Shelbourne their first title in 25 years. And I think he said, this isn't caveman football over here. I'm playing some decent stuff, and he's now out of work as well. So I suppose I'll get your personal opinion on it. What do you want to see Blackpool bring in next? Is it someone like Ian Evatt, or is it someone completely left field and, put a new stamp on the football club?
Well, the basic, I want to see somebody who's on the training pitch before the players and leaves at the very last after the very last session and the ball's been kicked. And I want somebody who's committed. I want somebody who's got fire in the belly. I want somebody who doesn't take any shit off players, but is also still in touch with them enough to kind of empathise and kind of understand and not be a bit aloof. And by the way, that's not a hint about anybody who's just left, but all right, it is. But I'm just saying that, that's what you want. You just want somebody who's on. I mean, Critchley had his knockers, but frankly, he was on the pitch trying to make players better. We've not got a track record in the last 13 months of making players much better. I think we do sort of discard people a lot, and we throw people away and dismiss them. I think Evatt, as an example, made some mistakes at Bolton. Definitely, it's quite a massive jump from Barrow to Bolton, but he got them promoted. He got into the playoffs 2 other times and won the Virtue Trophy. And I think his last 6 months has been defined, or that's defined him, his last 6 months at Bolton. But show me a manager that's not had a rough time in their career. Hardly anybody's gone through their managerial career without having a bump in the road. He's ex-Blackpool, which seems to be a big tick for a lot of people. He run through brick walls for this club. And I think he would probably not make those mistakes at Blackpool, having had a taste of it and done really well. He's managed nearly 400 games. He was a very lauded coach when he was at Barrow. He doesn't just play three at the back. I know he did at Bolton, but I think he's adaptable and he's available. I'm not saying it should be him, but what I'm saying is too many people have dismissed him, which is a bit. I think if he hadn't managed Bolton, he'd have managed someone down south. He'd be absolutely top of the list. It's because he managed Bolton that people have got a problem with him, in my opinion. And also, he brings Stephen Craney with him. Whoever he brings in would care a fuckload more about this club than other people have done recently, without a shadow of a doubt. Craney, or if he was able to persuade Gilks to come back from Barnsley, I don't know. But this is what we want, isn't it? We want people who know the club, care about the club. And yeah, if Steve Thompson's involved, I've no problem with it. But I don't think Ian Evatt, with 400 games under his belt, needs Steve Thompson to guide him. I think he's his own man. But is a possibility. Wellens, I wouldn't knock Wellens. I know, Tom, you love him. And if we got him, great. I would back him 100%. I think it's a complicated...
Wellens' mentality is something that I haven't seen. And I've watched a lot of Orient and his interviews, and he's got Orient to the point where Orient is thinking on his level, not just small Orient, and he's made that very clear that he doesn't want anyone at the football club, including the owner, thinking that they're a small club. And look what they did last season. We've never nicked a manager from another club, and that we must be one of the only clubs in the country that have never actually taken a manager who's currently under contract at another club. And one of the guys I mentioned in the podcast chat was, I know it's obvious because he's doing well, but Matt Sadler had an absolute nightmare second half of the season last year. Walsall fell away. They didn't get promoted in the end, but they're right up there again at the top of the league. That shows to me you've got something, some balls, some resilience, because a lot of managers, like stereotypically, that would have gone tits up this season and he'd have been sacked, but he's right there at the top. I know it's League Two, but and Artell as well, another one, done superbly. Maybe it ended badly for him at Crewe, but he is doing well. I'm not saying, again, it's that character. You want somebody who's got a lot of fire in the belly and something to prove. I think Skabala would be a great choice, but how do you get him out of Lincoln when they're doing so well? I mean, we love our club, but he might not look at us as an attractive proposition when he's in the top 3 or 4 with Lincoln. So Evatt to me is the obvious choice. My gut feeling is that Dobby doesn't even take a game. I think we appoint someone this week. I genuinely do think we'll appoint someone this week. And that's
because we have to.
Kurt, I'll come to you. I think Martin's named 52 managers there, so you might not have anyone left. I think the reason that I this whole relationship with Sadler and Evatt, I don't think we're naive, and I've not known it. I know about Evatt and what he's done off the field, and his arrogance, etc. But the reason I think it's going to be a lazy and quick decision is because Evatt is the quickest one you can appoint and probably fall reasonably well with the fans and potentially have instant impacts. I think anything past Evatt is going to take a little bit of time, of course.
Yeah, I mean, we could name hundreds of people in this podcast. It'll probably be none of them. Look at the last appointment; wasn't even on the booking on the bookies. There's random names out there that some people are throwing out. Like I saw Jack Wiltshire. Maybe we go down the route of an ex-elite Premier League player, and try and get somebody in that's, I don't know. I have no idea the direction. The problem is the reason why we can't predict this is because there's not been a plan from the club, so we're not really understanding the vision and the plan from the club. You look at the recruitment in the summer, our recruitment was to just get players that were, used to promotion in the last few seasons, not necessarily about their character or about their ability. If you look at some of the signings, it looks to me like that's where we've gone. With the Heatway, with Horsfall, very successful in those clubs. So I have absolutely no idea. I don't know the direction. I'd love to see the list. I'd love to get an inside view at the people. Open it up and people that have applied for it. I'd love to see the list of people that apply for it, because that will give you a good direction of where we can go. It's great talking about Wellens and about all these people, but they might not want it. They might not want it.
I think
and half of me is saying let's get someone in now, but Hockey's probably right. Stockport's a nightmare because you don't want to start off on the back foot. Let Dobby just take it, no matter if we get someone in Wednesday or Tuesday. Just let Dobby take it. But actually, it'd be nice for some people to come to the club and go, right, with this group of players, this is what I'm going to do over the next 4 to 6 weeks whilst I wait for these players to come back. We're going to play like this. We're going to do this. The players get on board or they don't. And if they don't, see you later.
And
Train
that's
with the reserves.
That's where I think Sadler needs to take his time with this, because he is, like we said, he's invested very well in this squad of players. He will not be wanting to fork out another couple of 100 million, bloody hell. Please do, Simon. He will not be wanting to fork out a couple more million in January based on any
Red Bull, Blackpool.
During this interview process, he has to be putting down this squad in front of managers and going, what are you going to do? Tell me where we're going to be in 5 years under your management, and how are you going to do it? Because I am not putting my hand in my pocket again in January, and then again if we're still in League One at the end of the summer. And that's what he's got to do. So giving Dobby that little bit of time could well work in his favour. I appreciate Yates with the thing. I need to try and get the fans back on board or whatever. We've seen comments tonight, Speeds, but very much 50-50. Wellens, I think, would be seen as a positive, but again, he's moved down south. He pretty much laughed at us in the last interview when Orient beat us 1-0 down at their place. He pretty much said, I knew exactly what this club were going to do. I sat and watched him. It was an absolute doddle. So whether we could prize him away from Orient, I don't know. Just going back to when Holloway took over the club. Okay, in terms of saying, he was pointing at pictures of Matthews and Mortis on the wall, saying, I want my squad of players to become the new history makers at the football club, and he did it. And I think that's a massive positive for if Sadler does bring back, an Everett or a Dobby and goes, look, I'm on the wall. I know what it takes to win at this club. This is what we were part of, and I'm going to make you be the exact same. For any squad, for any man, that is inspirational. That's going to get you further than any outsider coming in. But again, just don't rush it. Just do not rush it, Simon, and make sure you get it right.
I just feel that this Bruce departure has been on the cards for a few weeks, and you know what, right? I'm not going to actually give them any credit in terms of like the succession planning, but the rumblings have been there for ages, and I would actually, even with our ineptitude at kind of doing stuff and being proactive, I'd still be amazed if people haven't been sounded out and spoken to and gone, look, this isn't going very well, because the haste with which it was done on Saturday, it shocked me. I didn't think it'd be done that day. I thought it might be Sunday morning. I mean, Kurt thought we were doomed for a lot longer, didn't he? But I genuinely thought it shocked me that he went that quickly. Even though he walked down the tunnel with Crixley, that happened with Crixley, but it still was the Tuesday, the Wednesday when he went. And I just think that it was always like
he went the next day, literally the next morning. I think he went Monday morning, didn't he?
Yeah, Monday morning. Monday morning. But Bruce went at 7 o'clock. Right, straight out the door, which makes me think that they have got a kind of standby list, and they'll probably pick the first person off it.
Can I just go back to Hoggy's point quickly about Holloway and about all these people? Blackpool fans love a bit of a vision and a bit of a quirkiness, and have always backed people that a bit out there and a bit unfashionable. You look at our appointments; they're very uninspiring. Appleton, McCarthy, Crixley, Grayson again. Yeah. Bruce, uninspiring. By all means, go for a character. Maybe we need to go abroad. Someone that will come in that just doesn't give a monkeys about reputation, about who's the big dog in the changing rooms, and doesn't give a toss about Evans. All right, you're not on the bench this week. See you later. Maybe that's what we need. Maybe we need someone that just doesn't have a single bloody clue about the football club, and go, all right, come in and show a bit of character. I'm not saying Josie Riga, but maybe that's what we need, because
Russell Martin's just been sacked. That's abroad.
You're the last person that we want. But my point is, I think we always. I know people want to say about Dobby, but I almost think we need someone to come in, like someone that's almost from a separate, country, separate division, and come in and try and get us playing football and being a bit, a bit aggressive and a fit and acting like a football club that's trying to progress and get better. We don't look like that. We look like we're just stalling and just sinking, and it's kind of all a bit meh, and we're losing to Wimbledon at home. You're absolutely mental. Should be throwing seats on the pitch. Should be trashing the place. Why are we not absolutely fuming?
If we played that game next week,
because we're used to it. Because we're used to it. It's unacceptable. I can't believe that we're not smashing the gaff up. You know what I mean? That's
No,
what should be
I
happening.
think the caveat to losing that game was because we knew what was coming afterwards, and therefore we kind of just accepted it because.
Yeah, but they're lucky, the players, Tom.
They
They're
are.
lucky, the
No,
players.
I get it. I absolutely get it, mate. I do, and they're the players that have got, they've got 3 or 4 year contracts, and they're going to be representing this football club for the next, until the next window. Potentially might not get anyone in because they spent so much money. I don't know, but it's certainly interesting, and I think it's a bit of a mystery. I think I'm with Martin or whoever said they're going to appoint someone this week. I just have a feeling that this has been sounded out for a few weeks now. He may have sounded out Wellens, who knows? He may have sounded out other players, managers, and Everett might be that choice. I don't know, but I agree with Hoggy. I think we should take our time, but I feel that the decision is going to be made fairly quickly. I don't think Dobby will have a lot of time, if any at all, past Saturday. So I don't know.
I mean, maybe Steve Banks, it's time for him to go, as like, and maybe we do need another goalkeeping coach. I mean, I think, again, Kurt said it a lot.
I think if Everett comes in, he brings
you
his
can
whole
be there too long,
recruitment
can't
up.
you? You can be
one that
part of
tells the
too long.
goalkeepers they can come off their line would be nice.
Well, you're asking a lot there.
I think the thing with Everett, if Everett does come in as well, and what I would like about the appointment, the guy absolutely believes in his way of managing and playing football. I do hope, like Martin alluded to, he's a little bit more adaptable than what he set out at Bolton. I think that was fundamentally his downfall of sticking to his 3-5-2. But the one thing I like most about him is he will become, no doubt about it, our Nathan Jones type of character as a manager. He's going to become our dickhead, and he will be going out his way to annoy every single club, manager, player, opposition that walks on Bloomfield Road, and that will be the benchmark, and that will be imprinted on every single player in Tangerine week in, week out, and that is something to look forward to. But on the flip side, Ian Everett backs himself. He'll be telling Simon Sadler to go fuck himself if he's questioning things. He won't be having he won't be having sit down cups of tea with Critchley, explaining things when Simon Sadler used to talk about that's what he liked. Everett will be telling him to fuck off and see you next week and so on and so forth. But that might be what this squad needs, because, like, I agree with Kurt, this squad have got off very, very lightly because of the mess that Bruce caused himself from the start of the season. So yeah, let's see where we go.
I think is a good time to call it pod. Kurt, you got anything else to add on the matter?
No, I've gone red in the face. Got a big meeting tomorrow. Probably should prepare for that.
You're not applying for the job, are you, Kurt?
All right.
They can afford me. Wouldn't take it. I reject it. I'll release a press statement tomorrow saying that I turned it down.
Yeah. Martin, anything for you to close the pod off, mate?
No, not really. Just I just think those players will improve. I mean, I can't get much worse, can they? So it's a low bar, but I bet you watch those players improve under anybody else. But let's just make the right decision and move forward, because it's fucking miserable, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah. Kurt might get some passion back in the players. And as Victor Wolves to get behind the team on Saturday, yeah, hopefully. Anything for you, Hoggy, before we end the stream?
No, I think that's a good point about getting behind the lads on Saturday. I think we know they'll have had a very different week from what they've been expecting under Bruce on Squiresgate, and wandering around in flip flops, chilling out, etc. Fair play to the fans. We travelled it, like you mentioned before, Tom, at the start of the season. Exeter and Plymouth, we took good numbers down there, and we haven't had a performance all season away from home. We've been absolutely abysmal. But again, Bradford, 2,500 or whatever Oslo went down there. Great numbers, and we'd sold out before full time on Saturday. So before even knowing that we thought Bruce might be in charge, we'd still sold out on away end. So everyone who's got a ticket, make the most of it. Hopefully it stays dry. And yeah, so we can get a very long overdue win at Edgeley Park and kick on a bit of momentum. Beat Wickham at home, Plymouth up Peterborough away. It's 9 out of 9 going into Cardiff at home. Beat them, top half of the table.
The perfect
Doddle.
15. Right, lads, thank you very much. And thanks for everybody. Well over 350 of you watching and getting involved tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure going through all the comments, and some of them much more funnier than others. But enjoying. Maybe this week we'll do another pod based on the manager. If not, we'll be back with a preview for Stockport, where we do have a confirmed guest who doesn't run off during the podcast. So we look forward to catching up with you during the week. And for now, it's a goodbye from us. Goodbye, Martin.
See you later, guys. Good luck.
See you, Kurt.
Toodles.
See you, Hoggy. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Ciao.
Take care, everyone.